That ends the prepared portion of this presentation. We'd love to open it up now to answer some of your questions. Thank you so much for sending them in during our presentation. Dr. Benning, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, great question. We'll start with the questions that kind of came in during the beginning of the presentation. Can you spend more than one weekend on campus to work on satellites / use the facilities to develop independent projects?
Let's see. There's a yes and a no to this. So the yes is we support independent projects. In fact, you might not have realized it, but there was an elective in both of the focus areas called directed studies. So not only do we encourage it, we think it's a great idea. We have ideas to do that. They tend not to be done on campus. So maybe many of our students may be APL employees. Obviously, they would be on campus, but we would not have non-APL staff come to the applied physics lab. And then we also do not have a presence on the Homewood campus in downtown Baltimore. But let me give you an example as to a directed study project. We just brought 5 or so students through the following project in the spring semester. We had 2 experts in spacecraft physics, and they built a course to teach students what it would be like to build a spacecraft and the physics around taking a spacecraft to an interstellar capability. NASA's exploring an interstellar probe, and we have an interest in educating students along that domain. And so we built a 14-week course of an independent study along with a project that was a non-standard, not publicized, independent study. So we offer those options. They don't need to be as interesting as that one is as an example, but if a student has a particular topic they'd like to study, we can try to find a faculty member or a staff member to walk them through an independent study course. But we support that, and we do think that's a fine way to get an elective.
All right, great. Next question. For online courses, how are exams administered? Are students required to take exams at a local exam facility? Dr. Benning.
They're not required to go to a local exam facility. Exams are done. We have an honor code and honor system. We also have, as you can imagine, an artificial intelligence engine that scans homeworks and scans projects and ensures there's a lot of unique content in there. The homeworks are done independently and submitted to the online tool. Our main interface is an educational application called Blackboard. And so each student would get a Johns Hopkins University ID, log into Blackboard. Their courses would show up there as links. Each course and each section has an independent content with discussion boards and the content, if it's an online course, to watch the lecture modules, read the homework, read the reading material, and submit the homework and projects to that mechanism. So exams are administered by the student at home. Sometimes they're timed. So there's a clock on some exams depending on the instructor, and it varies by course. So it's not worth me going through all the various examples. But the bottom line question that is asked is there is not a testing center, and the students tend to do their exams if they're an online course at home, and if they're virtual live, some of them come into APL and do those.
All right, great. We had a couple of earlier questions, Dr. Benning, regarding virtual live courses, whether or not they can be completed entirely at a distance, whether they, for example, are different than on-site courses. Could you, I know that we discussed this at kind of the beginning of the presentation, just for anyone who joined a little bit later, could you review how virtual live courses work?
That's a great idea. And to people who are not familiar with the vocabulary, it can be quite confusing. It was confusing to me when I first learned of it, but I now understand the definitions. And the simple definition, so the question about the virtual live, can they be done remotely? And the answer is yes. And that actually is the intent of virtual live. Virtual live was, I would call it, the first version of online. In fact, when I was in grad school, little did I know it, I was in a virtual live course room. So I was at the University of Colorado at Boulder, taking a class on remote sensors, and we had students who were listening to the course, but they were at Lockheed Martin, 150 miles away in Waterton, out south of Denver. That's a virtual live class. There's a live instructor teaching to students in the course room with a video camera, audio camera, and material being projected to people who are not live in the classroom. In fact, I find many of our virtual live students, when they show up in the classroom, realize I can watch this from home, and they may not come into the classroom because it's not necessary. For this program, this entire program can be done remotely, with the one exception of the weekend residency. And many of the engineering for professional programs are going down that path. Online is not a live interactive session like virtual live. It is asynchronous. There are recorded lectures. It's done at the time and leisure the student wants to in a given week. We do have all of our modules open up for a week. You can't just decide to take this course from March to July. These are on a 14-week semester. They follow the Hopkins University semester. It's not like you just decide when you want to start. But by that, I want to add, and I should have added this earlier, this particular program, Space Systems, you can apply now and start in the spring. You can apply in the spring and start in the summer. You can apply in the summer and start in the fall. We have courses year-round, and our first course is available year-round online. So you don't need to wait to show up to your first course in the fall next year. You can start anytime you're ready.
All right, great, great. There are a couple of questions here, Dr. Binning, and I'm just, I'm working from kind of top to bottom. So I'm sure that there's more, because there normally are more, questions related to personal circumstances or admissions requirements. I'll kind of address some of the more general ones. If anyone has any questions specific to their personal circumstance, go ahead and type it into the questions tab. What I'll do is I'll pull all the questions into a kind of a separate report after the event, and I'll send them to you, Dr. Binning, to answer one-on-one. Is that okay?
Perfectly fine. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. All right. But for some of the more kind of general questions, does a BS in physics qualify under technical degree requirement?
Definitely. We have many students that have a BS in physics, and they do great in the program.
All right. And then the 3.0 GPA question is a question that we get frequently during these information sessions. How hard is that 3.0 GPA requirement? Would an otherwise strong application be considered with a GPA below that?
The short answer is yes. It's based on a couple of factors. How well did the student do in some of the more difficult courses like calculus and physics? We then dig into that. We will look at the student's employment record. What are they working in? What discipline are they in? And then if the student's really interested in we can actually provisionally admit a student to say, okay, we're going to let you in, but you're not fully admitted. You must first take your first two courses, achieve a grade of higher than C, which is a B minus, then you are unconditionally admitted. So we have ways to go about that.
That's great. That's great. And Dr. Binning, in some cases, I know with other programs, if a student has a GPA below a 3.0, excuse me, something that might help strengthen their application is, we do not require GRE scores, but if a student has a GPA below a 3.0, is that something that would help their application? Is that something you would take into consideration?
It definitely would, yes.
Okay. Next question, great question. What is the recommended number of credits for a student who works 40 to 50 hours a week?
This goes to really, are you married? Do you have young kids? Are you single? There's a lot of other factors that come into play than just your workload. An Engineering for Professionals program, that's a part-time program. I think students that take more than 2 courses a semester may be doing themselves a disservice. We have many students that take 1 a semester, and if you take 1 a semester, that's 2 a year. In 5 years, you have your degree. It's all a matter of internal motivation and interest, really, in the end. Our 5 core courses are very intensive, especially FES 1 and FES 2. And then the application of space system engineering, they're intentionally very rigorous. They have a lot of homework and a lot of projects. Our electives are intentionally a little less rigorous. They're deep and necessary, but it's all a matter of personal availability and interest, I think doing more than 2 in any given semester would be a very big challenge.
Great, great. And this is a great follow-up question. If you actually take one course a semester and stay continuously enrolled, including the summer semesters, you could actually complete the program in a little over 3 years. I believe that's right, 10 semesters. And which leads me to this question, Dr. Binning, are classes available in the summer semester?
Yes, many classes are, but not all are available. In fact, I see an upcoming question, which I'll add into this as well. You can easily go online and look and see which courses are offered which semester. So as an example, some instructors have 2 courses and they only want to teach that one of their courses in the fall and one of their courses in the spring. So by definition, they're only offered once a year. We actually have some other instructors, not in my program, that only offer their course once every 2 years because they only expect that level of cadence of students to go through it. So it very much depends on the instructor. Maybe some courses have multiple instructors, but the bottom line is there are many courses available during the summer. It's a 12-week semester, not a 14-week semester, so it's a little more compact, and we try to cram more in a small amount of time. But no, what Cheryl mentioned with regard to getting a degree in 3 years plus an extra semester, eminently doable, and there's many courses in the summer, and all of the exact details are available online on the EP website.
And the tool that Dr. Binning is referring to, it's called the Course Schedule Search, and you can access it by clicking on the Programs tab, and then the Course Schedule Search tab is located on the menu. I believe it's like if you're on a desktop or a laptop, it's on the left-hand side, and that'll give you access to basically any of the courses the course listings for any of the upcoming semesters that we have posted. Quick question right here. When does the summer semester usually start? It usually starts at the beginning of May. I think it's normally around like May 15th, Dr. Binning. Does that sound about right? I think that's right.
That sounds about right. I don't have the date in front of me. I'm afraid to answer any more specific than that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Same here. Can you transfer grad courses from another institution into the program?
Happens very often, and the answer is yes. There's 2 caveats, maybe 3. It's Hopkins University charges a $400 transfer in fee for each credit. We do evaluate the course material to ensure it is of a graduate degree quality and a Hopkins quality course. There are some institutions that we do not accept from, and that's just case by case. And the maximum number is 2, and they may only be applied to the electives. So we have 5 core courses that we do not accept electives against. In some cases, we will for the systems engineering course. I found a couple instances this year where we have violated that pretty hard rule that none of our core courses can be waived by an external. But we have found some very high quality external systems engineering courses that we have waived the core elective up front. But the maximum is 2.
2 courses, 6 credits. Very nice. Dr. Binning, do you know off the top of your head how many of your students are pursuing the degree online?
We have 260 active students, and we are on pace to admit over 150 students this calendar year. So by the time, this is a very new program as well. You might not all realize that. It's not even 4 years old. So I think by the time 4 years hence occurs, we will have of order 500 or 600 active students in any given year.
Great, 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 great. You know, the question that I'm looking at, Dr. Binning, is what PhD program would this flow into? And you know, this question about PhDs is a question that comes up often in information sessions. What advice would you have for attendees interested in PhD study?
I would offer a couple of thoughts in that. First, it may not just be a PhD. Some universities, to include Hopkins Whiting School, are beginning to offer doctorates of engineering, not just doctorates of philosophy in core research, but doctorates of engineering for folks who are going into practicing and practical engineering? That's one part of the answer. Second part of the answer is I think it would depend on the student's interests. So as an example, if one went down the path of this program and one came in with a mechanical engineering degree, and you came into this program, you took our core courses, and then you focused your electives in an area of mechanical engineering, thermal engineering, stresses, strains, things of that nature. One could then go get a PhD in mechanical engineering or a doctorate degree in mechanical engineering. You will already have had a lot of insight to how the space systems in general get put together. You now then can focus on mechanical. And I would pull that thread for almost any PhD program. Software engineering as an example. We let many students into this program. They then spend a lot of time working in flight software and software systems. They could go into getting a PhD in software systems, software engineering, and things of that nature. So I think it really depends on what the student's interests are. I think we're set up to allow that springboard into many different PhD and Doctorate of Engineering programs.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we had one attendee have a question as to whether or not we require letters of recommendation for admissions. And Dr. Benny, we do not require letters of recommendation, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We had a couple of attendees have questions related to kind of more career-related questions. I wanted to pop in here and say that our online and part-time students do have access to our career center. We actually we use a tool called Handshake that our online and part-time students are able to access as well. And it contains basically all of the job postings that different companies have placed. You know, are working with our career center to share with our students. Also, that Career Center hosts various events throughout the year. They, I know in the fall, they have at least 2 career fairs that one specifically dedicated to STEM fields that the online and part-time students are welcome to participate in. And they also host a variety of different webinars that may be of interest to that our students are also, our online and part-time students are welcome to participate in as well. So there is a variety of career-related resources that are available to not just our full-time students, to our online and part-time students as well, and they are working on building out more of those resources, particularly for our part-time and online students. Did you have any additional, anything in addition to add, Dr. Binning?
Oh, no, I think you covered that pretty good in that one.
Okay, okay. Oh, great. Another great question. Is this program geared more towards working with satellites, or would a graduate also be prepared to work in many other areas?
Yeah, I saw that question. I've been thinking about that. I think it depends on where the students are going. So at the fundamental level, what is a space system? It's a robot in space that you can't touch after you launch it. So all of the disciplines that go into making sure the system works as needed, as intended for some specific mission, that sort of approach is applicable to other disciplines. As an example, I could see if one came into the program, took our 5 core courses, pursued electives in perhaps physics of optics, electro-optical design, data processing, and went down the path of designing electro-optical systems for aircraft as not to be unreasonable. But we are pretty much focused on students that have an interest in space systems, but it is definitely applicable in other areas.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, give me one moment. Oh, if a person was accepted by the program previously but didn't enroll in a class, do they need to reapply for the program? Dr. Benning, would you like me to take that question?
That'd be great. I didn't quite get the second half. If they were,
Yeah. Yeah, so it really depends on this particular attendee. Typically what happens is that once you apply for the program, you are an active student. You can remain in active status without enrolling for up to a year. After that year, you're marked as inactive. And this happens just like at any point during your course of study. We like students to stay continuously enrolled, or not have a gap of more than 3 semesters. Typically, after 3 semesters, we'll mark a student as inactive, and in order to become reacted, that student just simply needs to resubmit the online application form. They won't need to submit all of the additional documentation and go through presumably the admissions process. You just need to submit the application form in order to be reacted. So
I
hopefully
think
that
I'd add to
answers.
that. I think I would add to that. 5 years is a pretty adequate time. We have given waivers for an additional year, sometimes an additional 2 years. But once you get into the 7 or 8 years to get a master's degree, there's some question as to the seriousness of the student.
Great. This is an excellent question for someone deployed or at sea with limited internet connectivity. Can the lectures in a pure online course be downloaded ahead of time so that correspondence is primarily limited to text or slow connections? So yes, Dr. Benning, what are your thoughts?
I've read that question and I've been thinking about how interesting that would be to be in that condition. I think the short answer is no. I think there's a however. We do have many students that are deployed through military services, but they have adequate connectivity to get the content, watch the lecture, and interact in the chats and online because there's a lot of project dynamic interaction. For someone who is deployed with such limited connectivity, I'm pretty certain that many of the courses in this program that require team project assignments would not be relevant or useful in that domain. The pure watching the video, I'm not certain. I'm pretty sure that our content cannot be downloaded, principally to protect the intellectual property as well.
That being said, I think that we do try to be flexible for our students who are deployed. So if for example, you're enrolled in a course and you are deployed, Dr. Binning, would it be a situation where that student could contact their instructor and maybe take an incomplete for the course or pause and then finish at a later time? What would you suggest?
And that's actually a very great answer. We do that a lot. And we are very accommodating, even for deployed individuals. They're not deployed. They tend not to be deployed with limited access for years at a time. There's pauses in the curriculum that we can offer. There's an independent study route. And so as an example, if one knew they were being deployed but wanted to continue doing some type of independent study, we could probably set up a type of an independent study where reading materials and lectures and study and homework could be done in that domain as well. So this is an engineering professionals program. We want to be flexible and support our service members that are unable to access easily like others are in this domain. I think in the end, I recommend applying. Talk to the advisor, talk to me, the chair. Let's work a program, see if we come up with something that works for that typical situation. This happens a lot. We have a lot of special cases, and we're very flexible in the program.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. There's a great question here about the differences between the cost of the full-time study versus part-time study, and I'm just pulling it up. I'm trying to locate that information on our website. There's a great tuition page that spells it out explicitly. I will tell you that the tuition for the part-time programs is significantly less than the tuition for our full-time programs. So that is a benefit that our online and part-time students enjoy. Is a slightly reduced tuition rate. I'm having I'm having troubles pulling up that particular tuition page, but to that attendee, why don't I email that to you after this session, and I will give you the exact breakdown. All right, I think that is the end of our questions for this evening. Dr. Binning, if anybody has any additional questions, how would you like them to be routed to you? Would you like them to email them to me and I'll forward them to you?
No, I'll give you my Johns Hopkins email. It's out there. It's public. It might even be on some of the campaigns that may have found you to this website. And so it's my first name dot last name at jhu.edu. So that's Patrick, Patrick dot B as in boy, INNING at jhu.edu. And I see some other questions in here too that we didn't get a chance to address. I'd be happy to give you my answer to those offline. So patrick.binning at jhu.edu.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for spending a little time with us this evening to tell you more about this program. Dr. Binning, thank you so much for your time and for answering all of these questions.
Great questions, and I was glad to do it. A lot of interest and great attendance tonight. So thank you, everybody, for attending.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I have recorded this evening's presentation. So once we have, kind of rendered the recording, we like to chunk up the recording too, so that it's easier to kind of navigate through the content, similar to our online courses, actually. So once that is completed, I will email it all to you so that you have it for future reference. Thank you again for your time, and please stay in touch. We look forward to hearing from you again soon.